Hey, Stephanie, nice to meet you. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much. So excited to be here.
I'm excited for our discussion. Really looking forward to speaking about all sorts of vegan myths around food prep and just kind of veganism in general. But before we get into that, I'm getting to know you, and so are our listeners. So I'd love to do a little bit of background story, how you came to veganism, what you do, that kind of thing. So why don't we start with the vegan piece? So how did you come to veganism? When did it happen? What's the vegan origin story?
Okay, so I'm actually coming up on my 11-year vegan anniversary in
Awesome.
February. I can't believe it's been that long.
Nice.
And I was vegetarian for 5 years. I went vegan for the animals. I still am vegan for the animals. But I was vegetarian for 5 years and had this like strong connection to animals. And there's a whole story with that, but whatever. We don't need to talk forever on that. The main point is that I got very passionate about, fighting for animals. And I was pregnant with my first daughter all through my pregnancy, and then my second, and my at the end of my second pregnancy, I have three children. I started craving meat,
Hmm.
and it was really bizarre. And at some point, I guess I became disconnected enough just to have meat, and I continued to eat meat for like the next almost 3 years until I had my son, which is where I became vegan. Is
Uh-huh.
I was nursing him and he was a year old, and I was happened to be reading The Kind Diet by Alicia Silverstone, which has great information about factory farming and dairy cow farming and all of that, which I had never realized. I had always been vegetarian. I was vegetarian for 5 years because I could never give up dairy,
Hmm.
specifically cheese. I was
Hmm.
like, I needed my cheese. I
You're
was
not
like,
the only one.
I was like, I can never give up. How do the vegans do it? So there I am. I'd been reading this book, and I looked down as I'm nursing my son, and I made the connection between mama cow and myself and my son. And I cried tears of just horror and went vegan overnight. I remember I was on
Wow.
vacation with my three children, my husband, and they were ordering pizza for dinner. And I said, I will not be having pizza ever again, or cheese pizza, real cheese pizza. And they were like, "What, mama? What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I just thought, oh, well, wait till you hear, they were young actually. So I had to be careful in how I share
Hmm.
the information. But it was instantaneous. I've never looked back. I don't miss cheese. I mean, there's so many delicious vegan cheeses. I'm like, why did I mean, especially now, 11 years ago, there wasn't as many options, but it was the best decision I ever made. As I said, I went vegan for the animals, but my body felt so great. The change from vegetarian to vegan, if there's anyone out there listening thinking, oh, is there that big of a difference? There actually is. My energy and my skin, my hair, everything like just was even like more radiant, and just people would ask me, what are you doing differently? So it was that dramatic.
Hmm.
And then you learn all about how great it is for the environment, and so for me it was a no-brainer. I never looked back. It's the
That's
happiest decision
amazing.
ever.
Yeah. It's very similar to me, actually. I was vegetarian for 5 years, kind of in the same realm, being like, well, it's something. I'm doing it for the animals. And it took me that long to make that connection. So I
Hmm.
think that happens probably not as much nowadays, but back in the day, this is going back to, I can't remember what year it was, 98, I think. Um, so back then, like access to information and that kind of stuff was a little bit more
Yes.
difficult. But that's awesome. So 11 years. Fantastic.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
tell us about what you do. Batch Cooking Club. What is it
Yeah.
that you are working on these days?
Yeah. So, okay. So, I am a plant based meal planning expert and the founder of Batch Cooking Club, which is a plant based meal prep membership, a weekly membership to help you basically get dinner on the table easier.
Hmm.
And as a side note, I'm also a children's book author. I'm so passionate about the animals that I wrote two picture books about animals. One's called Not a Nugget, the other one's called Not a Purse.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, and I actually have one more I want to do. The first one's about all the animals we eat. That our animals are our friends, not food. The second one's about all the animals that we wear or have in our home,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
the third one that is ready to go is about all the animals we wear in our beauty products and cosmetics and things like that. So I'm very passionate about the obviously about the lifestyle, and my background is really kind of unique in that my background's in marketing. But when I went vegan, I had such a love for it. And I still am pretty much the only vegan in my social circle. And I really
Hmm.
craved the connection of needing to connect with other people, share what I was doing because I was so joyful about it. And as any new vegan probably knows, if you're the only vegan, that people get tired of hearing you, really quick. So I started an online community. That online community grew. I'm Veg Mama on social. That's where I started with a blog and then social. And then as I became a mom with a non-vegan family, I actually my oldest went vegetarian on her own almost 4 years ago, or actually it might be
Oh,
five in
awesome.
November. I've lost track. And we can talk about that. But I became very, very good at balancing how to feed everybody and being a busy working mom. And how do you get dinner on the table? How do you just cook, and let alone for a diverse variety of diets? So over time, I developed this system. I started teaching classes, batch cooking classes in my home a couple years ago. They took off. People were like, how do you do this? I love this. And I could see this need, and not just a need, but kind of, I call it life changing. People were really like asking me like, can you do this more, like almost like this
That's a
intense
good
response,
sign.
right? And so I thought, gosh, I got to figure out a way to make this more accessible to more people. So I launched Batch Cooking Club at the beginning of this year, and it's been the best thing. I've connected with so many great people and have really learned that there is meal planning is not a skill that we learn in school. I don't know why. It's a life skill,
Hmm.
and it doesn't have to be as hard as it is for a lot of people, right? It seems like I mean, I've heard it all, and people find it's really challenging. So my goal is to help not make it challenging and make it easy to eat healthy, delicious plant-based meals, because there's so many there's so many uh what's the word I'm looking for, assumptions, and you know gosh, I can't think of the word, but you know what I'm saying. So many
Hmm.
thoughts
Hmm.
about like, oh, this is going to be hard, this is going to be difficult, and so I try to break it down, and that's what I do at Batch Cooking Club, and plus give you delicious vegan recipes to feed your family.
Excellent. Well, some of that is what we're going to talk about, the assumptions. I like calling them myths because it's just kind of these like inbuilt things that people assume. So it's kind of assumptions or myths. We'll talk about those, but I'm interested in your family situation. So you mentioned that your daughter went vegetarian on her own. So are you a mixed household? Like is your husband on the plant-based train? What about your other kids? Like how does it work in your house?
So yeah, so I do all the meal planning and prep and cooking in my house. So we eat vegan at home. If they want to make something that's not vegan, they can make that on their own. We've kind of, there's been a journey definitely of like setting up ground rules and respecting each
Hmm.
other. I feel my kids were 6, 3, and 1 when I went vegan. So like my youngest has never had cow's milk, but the other two obviously had been exposed. And
Hmm.
my approach at the beginning was, everyone's vegan, not my
Right.
husband, but the kids are vegan. I was throwing out every product. I mean, I literally went vegan overnight. I do not recommend that. That was a little intense, but I got through it. uh, so I started very harsh and strict about it. And I realized real quickly that got me nowhere. Nobody was compassionate. Nobody was understanding. Nobody was open to learning because they just saw me as this tyrant saying, this is what we're doing now. And
Hmm.
so I had to learn compassion for myself and my family. And remember, here I was 33 when I went vegan. So for 30, minus those 5 years that I was vegetarian, I ate meat and dairy, and, so I needed to meet everyone where they were. So it was definitely a journey. Over the years, we've had different, we've segued like, at the beginning, we have Taco Tuesday. At the beginning, we'd have my dad would make a turkey filling and I would make the vegan filling. And then I would have all the veggies and toppings, right? Fast forward, I forget how many months we were into doing that. And my kids are like, Mom, we really like the vegan filling. You don't need to make the turkey
Mm,
filling anymore.
interesting. Uh-huh.
So it's been kind of gradual, but like, if we, so all, everything I plan is vegan, and my
Mhm.
husband, actually, you asked about my husband. He says to me, if this is the way to go. If I wish I was as disciplined as you, I would be vegan. I just can't do it like you do. But because I do all the cooking, it's really easy for him to be vegan at home. But if
Mhm.
we go out to a restaurant, like he'll his only burger that he'll eat now is a Beyond Meat burger. He won't eat a regular burger. So again, it's been about meeting people where they are, and we have ground rules. And I guess it worked because my daughter went vegetarian on her own. She can't give up the cheese, so we'll see. Hope she'll follow in my footsteps, maybe. But more than anything, I think that I try to make them conscious of the choices they're making and where their food comes from, and that they know what they're eating. They know what's in a hot dog if they choose to eat that hot dog, that kind of a
Mhm.
thing. And so we have respect. It has not always been easy, but we're at a great place. They are 17, 14, and 11 now, or yeah, 11. Oh my goodness. And I sound old. And and yeah, and it's been a journey, and I love cooking, so they get exposed to vegan food. I would say, like, they definitely have their cravings, and when they're out they can have that, or like I said, they can make it at home if they choose to do so. I'd say 90% of the time, though, they eat what I cook.
Mhm. That's a good place to be at. I know it's more challenging for families who, where one parent or both parents make the transition when their kids have already eaten a certain way versus like
Yes.
raising the kid vegan. That's generally pretty easy to
Yes.
do from what I've heard. One of my best friends has a son who's 13 and he's been vegan his whole life. He just was born vegan, right? So that there hasn't been this whole
Yeah.
transition period and negotiating and figuring out what works and being the mixed household. But that's
Yeah.
great though that it sounds like it's been kind of a journey, a
It
progress,
has
kind of
been
long-term
a
progress.
journey. Definitely. And I agree with you. If I had not had kids, I would definitely have insisted that we raise them vegan. I think about that all the time. But this is where I am, and I had a lot of wrestling with it. I don't know if there's anyone who was in my similar situation. Like,
I'm
no, that
sure
I
there
say
are.
that with a lot of compassion because it was something I wrestled with. I had a lot of shame about it at the beginning. Like, I'm vegan, but I
Mhm.
can't get my family to do it with me. I'm a failure as a mother. And I really had to learn compassion for everybody, especially myself. And I've gotten there. Like you said, it's a journey. So I
Mhm.
dream, though, is, yeah, someday they'll all choose plant-based lifestyle, right? That would be like the goal.
Totally, but the only way it's gonna stick is if they choose for themselves, right? Like, I mean, I've
Yep.
I've mentioned this before on the show, but it took 10 years for my husband to live with a vegan, i.e. me, and then decide to become vegan on his own. Like we would
Yeah.
share cooking duties and everything would be vegan at home. So it's not like he's sitting around eating, a steak every night.
Right.
But still, it can take a long time and it has to be on that person's schedule, not ours, which is tough
Hmm.
sometimes. I know a lot of people listening to our show are in a situation where they're like, "Can't you just do it? It's so easy." But yeah, it's a process.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. Let's get into some of the related myths. So this is some of the stuff we're going to talk about is relating to what you do for with your business. And some of it is also related to your personal life. So, like living in a mixed, so-called mixed, I'm doing air quotes,
Yes.
household where not everyone is vegan. So, let's start with the food prep side of things. Cause I think, if you scroll Instagram for vegan food prep, you're going to see some amazing things, but you're also going to feel pretty damn overwhelmed. At least I do
Hmm.
when I go like down major rabbit holes looking at what's available. Like how many hours did it take this person to make this amazing spread that's going to last all week, right? So, the first myth that we have on the agenda is this concept that preparing homemade vegan meals is super time consuming and really difficult. So, prove us wrong.
All right. I love that myth because we're gonna bust it. Bust
Love it.
that myth. So my approach to meal prep is to make your meal plan work for you, not create more work for you, because you're not
Mm,
going to do it if it makes more work for you. And so the way that I approach it and the way I do it in my membership is I break it down into steps. And so my philosophy is, I know there's meal preppers out there that take the approach of like, okay, I'm going to get in the kitchen for 5 hours. I'm going
mhm.
to make everything for the week, and I'm going to, just get this all done and have everything made. That's not my approach. So my approach is to, like I said, make your meal plan work for you, not create more work. And to do that, I do that by syncing my schedule to my meal plan and taking the help where I need it most. So I look at my schedule for the week, and is it like I have three morning meetings, well, I guess back in the day when we weren't actually leaving the house, but where I'm not going to have time to make breakfast, or is it lunch where I have a bunch of work meetings and I'm going to have to like have something I can eat really quickly at my desk, or is it dinner where maybe two nights during that week I've got like I'm in charge of carpool or I have a work meeting and I'm only going to have like 5 minutes or 10 minutes to reheat something, but maybe on those other 3 days I have plenty of time to make dinner. So it's
Mm,
really getting very specific with where you need the help and then creating a meal prep plan that supports that. So for example, with those breakfasts, maybe I'm going to put smoothie bags together or overnight oats and just make a couple of those for those days that I know I'm going to have morning meetings. Or I'm going to make two salad dressings and pre-wash and chop all my veggies so I can throw a quick salad together for lunch. And for dinner, maybe it's I'm going to make that lasagna on the weekend and a soup so that all I have to do is reheat or put in the oven. And so I don't want to spend, and in my membership, all of our plans, because we tell you step by step. Okay, number one, do this. While this is in the oven, you're going to cook this on the stove top, and while that's simmering, you're going to blend this dressing, right? So you're always efficient. I'm like a taskmaster, project manager. Like, I don't want you being
that's
idle in the
awesome.
kitchen. I want like every minute to count. And so you're in and out in 2 hours or less. Like, you are not spending more than 2 hours. You're not making more than 4 to 6 recipes. And then you're plugging those in where you need the help the most during the week. So it might be when you're not just time, it could be your energy. Maybe like Thursday nights are really hard for you because you're just exhausted and that has to be a night where you're just going to reheat something. But it's really, again, making it work for you. And so it's not hard, it's not time consuming. Everyone has 2 hours, and I make it fun. Like, I teach my members, like, pour your favorite drink, play your favorite music, make it an event that you enjoy and love to do. What will make you enjoy it more? So I hope I just busted that myth. I feel like I really busted
Yeah,
it.
I think you did. Someone like me, though, it's kind of hilarious because my first book was a cookbook with 100 recipes, and I don't even like cooking. So what do you do with people like me who just freaking just can't get behind cooking on a regular basis, even once a week? Like, seriously, I have to be honest and say my food prep takes around 2 hours, and it just feels like another chore. It's not fun. I used to hire someone to do it because I hate it so much. Now there's nobody coming to our house because of the whole
Yes.
pandemic rules, of course. Once I can get back to hiring out, I will. But in the meantime, I mean, it's been almost a year now where I
Oh
think
my,
we're at
yeah.
like 9 months now that we're in lockdown essentially. What do you have for someone like me who's just like, oh, cooking again?
So tell me, like, when you do the meal prep and you put it into action, do you feel great about it? Like, are you grateful for it? Like, do you like, oh, I'm so glad, it kind of like exercise? You're like, I really hate this. But then when you're going through your week, are you like, oh, I'm so glad I did that?
Absolutely. That's a really good point. Yes. So I'm very happy that I have it finished. I feel like I'm a step ahead of myself. I'm always telling my clients, like, for people who are busy, it works because you're a step ahead of yourself. You don't get to the point where you're
Hmm.
starving and you have nothing to eat. So yeah, kind of like a workout that you don't feel like doing. You feel accomplished
Right.
afterwards, for sure.
So then what I've said to clients before is I always ask them, what's your goal and your intention when you meal prep? And so that when you're having those moments, that you can kind of go back and reconnect with that and really say, okay, remind yourself, what's your goal? What's the intention you want? How do you want to feel? That's a really good question, is how do you want to feel when you're eating this food during the week? Is it going to make
Mm,
my life easier? What are the goals that you have for yourself? So that's one thing. When you're like, like exercise, when you're really like, I really don't want to do this, that will help get you there, hopefully, to do the prep. But then once, to make it more enjoyable, like you're saying, to really hate it like that I really would love to help you get over that. Like, if there's a way, if there's things you can think of that will make it more enjoyable, maybe you won't end up loving it, but make it, strive for more enjoyable. So whether it's maybe getting your husband in there with you, doing it at a time of day, maybe when you're having a glass of wine or your favorite beverage or whatever it is, um, like setting the mood or the tone, I used to host batch cooking parties, like classes in my house.
Cool.
And so back in the day when we could do that. And so maybe
Yeah.
it's having a few friends come over and you divide up, like everybody takes a recipe, brings their own containers. And so you only have to cook one recipe, but when they leave, you have 6 things that are prepped. So that's another
Mm.
idea. Like, can you maybe turn it around? Like, I know for me, paying bills, I hate doing it. I have to do it, right? But I hate it. So I have like a whole ritual I do when I do it. Like, I have a
I like it.
specific pen, I have like a candle that I light, I set an intention before I do it, and I have a glass of wine while I'm doing it. Those are like, and so I don't love it while I'm doing it, but it makes it more enjoyable. So that would be my advice to you. What can you do to add to the enjoyment? Because you might not love it, but I think you can aim to make it more enjoyable.
Oh, I like that. I'm going to think about this. Some podcasts, some music, some dark
Mm-hmm.
chocolate, maybe a
Yep.
Zoom hangout because these days we can't do anything in person with some people who might
Yes.
also be food prepping. I love that. Great ideas.
All great ideas.
Love it. Cool. So let's move into our second myth then, which is about following the meal plan that you set out for yourself. So, like, being on a meal plan, creating a meal plan takes too much work, is too difficult. What is the deal here?
So I would love to know when people say that, like, what are they doing? I ask them, what are you doing and what are you using? What tools or resources are you using? How are you organizing your recipes and things like that? I make it super easy for you in our membership because we give you the dinner plan, or we give you 4 dinners for the week, and we guide you through a process to help you do that. 20 minutes. 20 minutes is all you need. You have your grocery list and your meal plan together. And really, like, I think it's getting a system together. So what I teach is a routine. Like, if you got a plan to eat, right? Like anything, if you don't plan for it, it's not going to happen.
Hmm.
So I really encourage people to set 3 dates in their calendar every week, whether it's the same schedule, or some people have dynamic schedules, so they have to adapt. But the point is, they make these dates with themselves every week, and that is to make a meal plan, schedule 30 minutes. I always do it Thursday nights after dinner or after the kids are settled for the night. Another date and time to go grocery shopping. I always go Friday right after work. It's like, it's what I do. And then a time to meal prep. And for me, that's all,
Mm.
usually Sunday mornings. Get up, have breakfast, and then I'm in my mode, and I go from there. So whatever that is for you, like, set that schedule. That really breaks it down and simplifies things, because you know exactly what you have to do, and it breaks it into chunks. Okay. So it doesn't feel so overwhelming. That's
Mm.
key. You want to break
That's a
it
good
up.
point.
So and then as far as the actual meal plan, I think it's having a system. Like anything, you need tools and you need resources. You wouldn't I'm going to go back to the exercise analogy. You wouldn't go exercise without the right shoes, without a water bottle, without a goal of like what you're doing. If you're training for a marathon, you'd have like a set thing of
Hmm.
milestones you have to accomplish. So it's that idea with meal planning as well. And so if you don't have a recipe library or a cookbook that you're using, find those tools. There's apps, there's memberships like mine. Find things that are going to help you make it easier. And if you are doing it without that, that's really where the hard work and the challenges comes in, because you don't have the right tools. Like anything, you want to set yourself up for success.
Right. You have a good point, actually. I think in a lot of cases, it's just overwhelm. It's not actually the execution of the plan. It's not even having one in the first place.
Yes.
So
Yes,
that's a
and
really
that
good point.
that that overwhelm of like, where do I even start? If you just break it down into those three little mini steps of plan,
Hmm.
shop, prep, it doesn't feel so overwhelming. But you're right, you have to start with a plan.
So, for someone who does not yet have a membership to Batch Cooking Club that you run, um, what would you recommend to prevent the overwhelm? Like, let's say, I've got probably 16 or 20 vegan cookbooks on my shelf. There's Pinterest, there's Instagram. I have so
Mhm.
many ideas. What would you tell someone like me who's just like, okay, so I got 110 recipes to choose from?
So, a couple of things I would recommend. One is create a favorites list that you can keep a running list of meals that you love to make that are easy and that everyone in your house likes. So that
Mm,
way, when you're thinking about what do I make for dinner, you can just pull out this list. I keep mine in the kitchen. Like I have like a little, work center where bulletin board. And that way, as I'm introduce new recipes or try new things and people are like, oh, this is great, I can jot it on this list. And that way, when I go to make my meal plan, I grab that and I can always go, oh, yeah, this was really good.
mm,
And this is easy and comfortable. So, that's one really great thing. Another idea is templates. I love meal plan templates. So, like, for example, in my house, we always do Taco Tuesday on Tuesday, right? I know
mm,
I'm not unique in that. Or Meatless Monday. I know it's Meatless Monday in all of our houses, right? But if you can maybe structure a couple things. For breakfast, I pick two recipes, and I rotate them. So for
mm.
me, actually, it's the same thing every day. I'm super simple. I have my green smoothie every day. I'm really boring, but it works for me. Simplifies, it's not overwhelming. But if you need like with my kids, I'll do two options, right? It might be this week, it might be avocado toast and waffles, and I alternate them. So I only have to think about two recipes. The
Mm.
same with lunch. I'm really usually very boring. I do a big salad and I have I'll pick two salad recipes and I alternate them. I make the dressings on the weekend and I just alternate them. So breaking it down again, if that helps you narrow, okay, let me break it down. And then as far as organizing your recipes, if you have a cookbook, I really suggest like creating an index that you can put either one, if it's not so much for digital, but for cookbooks it works really well, and for binders if you like to tear out
Mm.
magazines, where if you organize your binder by type of, see, you can tell I'm like a meal plan nerd, I'm talking about binders here. I geek out over this
I don't
stuff.
know if you watch Parks and Rec, but you're reminding me of Leslie Knope, who has binders for everything, and she's
Yes.
awesome. So yes, I can picture it now.
So there's a binder
Uh-huh.
for everything in my with my recipes, the holidays, or this one's for dinners or whatever. If you can, to help you kind of organize that, if you have a cookbook that you like to use, put an index at the beginning where you write the name of the recipe and some like the page number, and so that you can look at the front of the index and go, oh, I have these 5 recipes that I want to try, or these that I've
Mm.
tried that I love. So it makes your cookbook a little bit more user friendly than this overwhelming like tome of like, oh my gosh, what, I forget what I wanted to make in here. If you've got
Mhm.
tabs in there, that can be overwhelming. So those are a few ideas I have to kind of, again, just to simplify, get a system together.
Love this. See, I'm an organizational nerd when it comes to like time planning, time blocking, and work,
Yeah.
but not meal planning. So I don't know why I haven't translated these things over
Yeah.
yet, but it makes sense.
It's the same. It's the same. That's probably why I love it so much, because I'm a project manager by heart. Like I love
Mm,
the organizing and taking chaos and simplifying and putting order to it. I thrive on that. So I think that's
love
why
it.
this is really my jam.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have a point also, what you said earlier, like, why is this stuff not taught in school? I
Hmm.
mean, I remember home ec class and we were learning how to make like cinnamon buns and scones and like, yeah, sure, that's fine, but it's not really the basic like how to feed yourself as an adult
Right, right. And
or how to make
I'm
plans.
I am more aware of that as I have a high school senior and getting her ready
Right.
for college. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, thank goodness she has these skills, because, I remember going to college. I did not have these skills at all.
No, I didn't either. On some level, yeah, but not like in a structured way.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, so let's switch gears then and go back to the mixed household thing. So we talked about it a little bit with your story and your family, but the myth here is that it's either impossible or really, really difficult to be vegan in a so-called mixed household where not everyone is vegan. So, what are some of your go-to bits of advice here and your myth
Hmm.
busting around being vegan in a non-vegan household?
It's a great question. It's definitely not impossible. And that myth, I mean, I obviously have busted it for sure. Here I am
Yeah,
11
yeah.
years later thriving with my non vegan family. I think I'm not going to say it's not challenging at the beginning for sure, right? Like anything. Um, anything that you'd start at the beginning is challenging until you find your footing and you get into a groove. And I think number one, my advice is, and what kind of turned things around for us is we created ground rules, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, is setting expectations, whatever that is for your family. So for
Hmm.
mine, there were some very specific ones. One was I could not cook vegan food. Like cook vegan food, non-vegan food,
Non-vegan food. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
non-vegan food.
I'm with you on
I
that. Hmm.
Yeah, and some people are okay. It just depends. Like you have to meet yourself where you're at. But I quickly became aware that, oh wow, this is really causing me discomfort and
Hmm.
like anxiety. And once I shared that, my husband was like, Absolutely, you don't cook meat anymore. I will do it if we want meat." And then that's the other thing, having a partner that you can talk to
Hmm.
openly, respect for each other. Another one of our ground rules was we had different plates or preparation tools and pots and pans for vegan food and non-vegan food.
Interesting.
I did not want my vegan burger in a pot in a pan that was again,
Hmm.
everyone's different. So just a couple of examples of how we came to. And then I also had to check myself, like, I didn't want them yucking my vegan dishes, so I shouldn't be yucking their. We say, "Don't yuck my yum." That's something probably all moms say to their kids. I don't know. So I had to check myself because I was being a little judgy, and for sure being a little judgy. I still have to watch myself. Sometimes I say things I'm like, "Oh, that wasn't very
Mm.
respectful of their food choice." So number one, that will make it a lot easier. We're talking about it's so challenging, it's so hard. Once you have ground rules that everyone agrees to and respects, it makes it a lot easier. Number two is, I think, getting your family involved in the meal planning. So
Mm.
Thursday nights, I do my meal plan. And I do it later after dinner. So what I do during dinner is I have a conversation with the family and say, "Hey, I'm getting the meal plan together after this. What does everybody want to eat? Any wish list items for breakfast, snacks, lunch, anything you guys are craving for dinner?" And from there, like, so if it's, burgers, for example, I know, okay, I can have plant based burgers and I can have a non plant based option, but I can make one meal for the family. I can have sides that are all vegan, but I'm incorporating their feedback. I'm hearing them, I'm adding that to the meal plan, and it
Hmm.
makes everyone feel like they're invested. And it doesn't make it so hard to like, oh my gosh, what am I going to feed that everyone's going to like? So get input, get them involved. That is, I can't stress that enough. Because then if they're like, well, I don't care, well, then great, you're going to eat what I cook.
Yeah, that's the deal. That's the deal.
Right? That's the deal. So those are a couple of things. Gosh, I could talk forever on that. I don't know. You want me to say any more? There's just so many. I mean, I feel like I could talk forever about this topic, obviously.
No, well, you have some good points. So, first of all, ground rules. Second, get the family involved. And I would think that it's especially important with younger family members, maybe so that they feel,
Mhm.
if they're not cooking yet, they still have a little bit of input on what goes into their mouths, onto their plate.
Yes.
Yeah, what else you got? We have a lot of listeners who want to go vegan, but this is a sticking point for them.
Okay, so something that also has worked really well in my family is food bars, and
Hmm.
that's kind of the taco idea, right? Where you have one meal, but you have two different fillings, or like burgers, for example. You can do it with pasta. You could, I mean, I have. I have actually a handout on this, a free download on food bar ideas, because it's so popular and it makes it so much easier. So that you put everything in the middle of the table, serve it kind of buffet style or family style, and everyone can customize their plate to their liking. So maybe you have the vegan
Hmm.
meatballs and the non-vegan meatballs and the sauces and bunch of like veggies and stuff to make your own pasta or whatever. Maybe there's two kinds of pastas. I mean, you could really go all crazy with this. And then you have a big salad, you have your garlic bread, and so that's not overwhelming to make two kinds of meatballs, right? Like you do two kinds of meatballs, you have your pasta, your sauce, and it's a really easy way to give people control over what they're eating and
Mm.
not feel like you're being forced like you were saying, especially with the little ones, like they can put what they want for their toppings and they can customize. So food bars are another great way, I would say, if you're trying to like make the transition, to do it that way. um, Getting your family involved, I keep going back to this, but in if you can have a like a night where everybody helps and is part of the dinner or maybe a part
Mm.
of the meal prep. I have found, especially with the younger kids, when they are part of preparing the meal, they are very excited to eat it because they made that and they want to see,
Mhm.
like they're very proud of that. So just little things like that to get them involved also is very helpful. I keep saying involve, get them involved, but that really is like anything in life. If you have a personal stake in it, you're going to be more invested in doing it. So it
Absolutely.
doesn't have to be hard. It really, baby steps as well, getting the family to try go out to a vegan restaurant once a month and like trying a new food like it's an adventure, make it fun so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming. People feel so overwhelmed by what we cannot eat when we go vegan.
Mhm.
And I find that really interesting. Instead of thinking about all the things you can't eat, I am always like, wow, look at all the things I can eat. I personally have never eaten a more varied diet since going vegan. And I was a really avid personal home cook. I love to cook. I love food. I like that's my love language. So I've never thought about it as that's isn't that one of the first questions you get when people find out you're vegan, like, oh my God, but you can't eat this, you can't eat that. What do
Yeah.
you eat?
What do
And
you
I'm like,
eat,
what
right?
don't I eat? I eat everything.
Exactly.
We probably eat a more varied diet than meat eaters,
Oh, yeah, easily. I eat a way more varied diet now than when I was vegetarian even.
Yes, me too. Same. Isn't that so interesting?
Very interesting. Yeah.
So
It's the whole, like,
focus on
abundance
that.
mindset, right, versus the avoidance
Mm-hmm.
mindset. It's huge. It
Yep.
comes up a lot, I think, in, especially newbie vegans who are just making the
Yes.
transition or it's been, like, a month or less or something.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's an important point. Just, like, get the family involved, make sure your mindset is on point, and that, especially with younger kids, it's gonna rub off on basically everyone in the household. So
Oh
I think
yeah.
that's super important. Awesome. Well, I heard that you have a freebie for our listeners.
I
Yay!
do.
So tell us about this. I'm very interested.
Okay, so I was mentioning that I have this system where with the routine where you schedule the 3 dates, and then I have this whole system where I take you through, and it's my planner, my batch cooking planner of creating your meal plan and then taking your meal plan and creating that prep plan of those 4 to 6 recipes to get you in and out of the kitchen in less than 2 hours with some food that's prepped that you can, sync your schedule to make it work for you where you need the help. And so I have this free planner that literally takes you step by step through it, worksheets. It's fun and colorful. Like I said, I like to make things fun and engaging. So it's bright, colorful, and you can get it at batchcookingclub.com/planner. And I would love people to check it out and reach out if they need help. But it's pretty straightforward. As I said, it takes you step by step through it.
Ooh, I think I need to go and download this
You
immediately.
need it.
Yeah, and you know what? If someone like me can get into this, and I feel like the way that you've laid it out and the steps that you have and the approach to it all, I feel like that's something I can handle. And so if someone like me who is not a foodie and hates cooking, even though she has a cookbook, which is kind of hilarious, can like, get behind this, I think pretty much anybody can. So I really appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you so much. And by the way, we're going to have links to not just the freebie and your resources, but also your website and your social at our show notes. So we'll make sure to link to that. But yeah, it was great to connect with you, Stephanie. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun talking to you, and I'm excited to see your meal prep journey continue.
Oh, maybe I need some accountability and I can be like,
I'm
hey,
going to
here's what I
follow up with
did.
you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.